Magic Makers.
Hello!
I'm Monvirella,
I'm Yukita Cosplay.
I'm Albie Robles.
and we have no CJ today, sadly, again. So y'all keep her in y'all's thoughts and prayers, please. She is doing better, but she needs a little bit of a break today. And we have special guest, however, Albie Robles. Say it. She said it beautifully.
Yes.
Okay.
Robles is fine, by the way.
Okay.
That's how most people say it.
And he is a voice actor. He also has a podcast that he
Before
does.
we begin, put your ones to the ready because we solemnly swear we're up to no good.
And I know it sounds more synchronized in our ears right now than it does there. That's why I usually just one of us says that. But we're just rolling.
Just ready to go, y'all. Let's go.
Yeah, it's been a busy, crazy couple of weeks. Ever since October came, it's been insane. So my brain's not stopping. So we already have a few hellos today.
Hello.
We got Jeremy, John Knight, and man, I love your name, but I'm not going to do justice.
Manu Falcon. That's my try.
I do know who you are.
I'm gonna call him Manu.
So,
yeah.
Manu.
I have some YouTube friends who come on here. You guys check out their channels if y'all get a chance because they have some awesome stuff. But today we are here to talk about Albie and your voice acting career. So welcome to Magic Making Mischief today. Yay.
Thanks so much for having me.
Round of applause.
So please tell us a little bit about your voice acting career that you had and some of your parts that people would know you from most likely too as well.
Okay. So I've been voice acting for almost 7 years now. Right around 7 years. I started at 40 years old. I've always been the performer type, theater all through high school and that kind of thing. And I'm a musician. I play music, and I always wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be in plays. I wanted to do film. And I kind of was headed in that direction for a while. And then, I lost my job at the studio where I used to work, or rather I left there because it was coming apart. And then I kind of stopped being on that path for a long time. And then I had kids, and I kind of became depressed from having a long time of not having any type of creative outlet.
Yeah.
Yes, I could sit down and play guitar in the living room or whatever, but there's something about people like audience, and we need to spread joy and whatever emotion you're trying to get through music, through performing. And I didn't have that, and I got pretty depressed, and I talked to my wife about that was happening to me. And she said, we'll pray on that. We'll try and we'll see what comes down the line. And when at the time I was working at a place where we sold uniforms to police, fire departments, and whatnot. And somebody called from one of our other locations, and when I answered the phone, in my work voice, and she went, "Albie, is that you?" Because it was a coworker that knew me from emails, but we never had spoken. She was at a like in New York or something, and I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, you should really go into voice work." And it got me really thinking, like, that's something that, even with kids, I could do that at home if I set up correctly, if I really learn how to do this. And when I brought it up to my wife, this was the coolest thing because I'm pretty wishy-washy about a lot of things. And I brought it up and presented it very nervously. Then like, I just was thinking about, I'd like to do voice acting and maybe do it as like, just like a hobby. And maybe if I start making some money down the line, that would be pretty nice. And she said, "Stop that." And she cut me off. And I said, what? Stop what you're doing. Tell me, what do you want? And I said, I'd like to try to get a voice acting career. And she said, then say that and do that. And that was like the push I needed. And I think without that reaction, I probably would have started out in the wishy-washy way, in a kind of maybe sort of hobby kind of way. But I dove in feet first. And it was just like this crazy time where I cut off listening to all the podcasts I was listening to, all the music I was listening to. And I had a pretty long commute at the time, and all I would ever do from then on is listen only to voiceover podcasts. So the voiceover podcasts and anything having to do with it. I joined every Facebook group I could find about voiceover. I learned I did everything I could to learn as much as I could. I read other people's questions, read their answers, and eventually got myself set up to beginner gear in the beginner space, and from there just eventually built myself up, and I can go into that a little later. As far as things that I've done, a lot of it's corporate work, a lot of like training videos and stuff. Um, but as far as character stuff goes, I've done a lot of stuff for Steam. So a lot of Steam games. Uh, One, it's probably the couple that are most popular there. It's one called Waxworks Curse of the Ancestors. I played the villain Vladimir in that, the Necromancer.
Oh, nice.
Oh, villains are fun.
Let's see, what else was there? Money Never. What is it? Five Nations is one that's pretty popular, that has its own Discord that quite a few fans are in. I play a few characters in that, including like the main, like when you first go in and there's the guy that comes on to train you about how to use the game. It's that guy, which I did kind of a little bit of I'm trying to think of his name from Star Trek. The hey now the oh my, what is his name?
Mom, you want to help him out? What's Star Trek?
What's
Wait,
that?
which version of Star Trek?
Oh,
are we
Zulu,
looking at?
the original Star Trek. A little
Zulu,
bit
okay.
of Zulu. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of that voice.
It's like there's so many Star Treks here. I'm thinking, I'm like, okay,
you're
wait,
right.
hold
That
on.
didn't narrow it down a lot. Yeah. So I kind of do that voice for a little bit there, and it's kind of what I base that character on. And it doesn't sound just like him, which I like. You know, I got this great advice one time, because most people's impersonations don't sound as good as they think they do, and they said that's actually a good thing. That's a strength. And so you do that when you're gonna create a character, and when you have that in mind, you do an impersonation of the character you have in mind. It's gonna sound a little different, and you're actually creating a new character. So that's a pretty cool thing to keep in mind.
That's a cool thing, actually. Yeah. We've got a question here real quick, which is along the lines that we're on. And he asked, Albie, what was your gateway anime?
As far as what got me into it, so as I said, I started voiceover at 40. So I was a teenager in the 90s when we still called anime Japanimation was the term at the time. And it was kind of breaking out as a new thing in the United States. And you would it wasn't readily available everywhere. You would, some kid would show up at school with some VHS and say, hey, you got to watch this. And they would kind of just going around, and then you'd copy it, and it would spread like a virus, going viral, but actually physically spreading throughout the country this way. And my sister was dating a guy at the time who brought in a movie called Akira, which when I watched that, I couldn't believe my eyes. A lot of the stuff that is animated today with the assistance of computers doesn't come close to what that movie looks like, but it was all hand drawn, and it was this Blade Runner level future. It was that detailed, and this incredible world building, an incredible story. And I'd never seen a cartoon that had, violence in it and blood and whatnot, but it was a great story. It didn't like have that for shock value or just like, hey, look what we can do with this animation. It was just, they were using the tools at their disposal to tell an amazing story. It blew my mind. And I watched a few things after that, and I liked them all, but the things that were coming out at the time, Vampire Hunter D was one. And, but none of them were at that level for me. And I kind of stopped watching for a long time, decades. I stopped watching anime, and it wasn't until I got to be in my first in anime for the first time. I got to be in One Piece, and that was right around the time that the live action one came out, and I was interested in watching it. My boys were interested in watching it, but catching up, because it was, this episode was in the 900s, and the thought of like sitting down to start a series that's that long, we were like, I don't know if we want to commit to that. And so the live action came out. We said, well, let's watch the live action so we can kind of see what it's about, see who these characters are. And then when that ended, that season, we went, well, we gotta watch the cartoon now. We gotta see where this adventure goes. And so we've been hooked ever since. We were watching it out here a while ago. We'll go back to watching it after we leave here. So so yeah, that's kind of how I got into it and then got into it again.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got a couple comments on the VHS thing from
Good old
Oh
Suncoast.
days.
yeah,
The good
VHS
old
from
days.
Suncoast.
I
Suncoast
miss
was my
Suncoast. Oh my
favorite.
gosh, that was my store, man. I'd just go to my parents would drop me off at the mall, and I'd go sit in that store and
Mm.
research music and movies all day.
I didn't have we didn't have a mall where
Mhm.
I grew up. It was a little town in New Mexico called
Oh,
Ruidoso, which was just this summer ravaged by a terrible, terrible fire, followed by terrible, terrible floods. It was just an awful summer
oh
Right.
for that
wow.
little town. So we would go to
Mhm.
Alamogordo, or to Roswell, which were the nearest kind of small cities near us. And I'll tell you something really cool. When the stealth bomber was a brand new thing, I was going to Alamogordo one time, and I went there to pick something up at the mall, and I was by myself this time, and I wish I wasn't because there was nobody to share the experience with. But as I was walking from my car into the mall, a stealth bomber flew overhead. Have you ever seen a plane landing where it's so close? It just looks like it's just a couple stories up. I'm sure it's higher than that, but it looked like it
Oh
was
wow.
just above my head because there's Holloman Air Force Base right there. I saw that so close up. It was one of the coolest things I saw in
Huh.
person.
Dang.
Wow. Like the only sad thing about the pre-social media days is like you have these stories and it's like, no, really it happened, but I can't prove
So
it.
like,
Yeah,
or it
exactly.
didn't happen, or a video, or it didn't happen.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
This
kind of
this
sad
generation
nowadays.
wants proof, and I'm like,
The
you just
big
had to
the
be
big
there.
fish stories now. The big fish stories have to be photoshopped. It's
15
like, no, look what I
Yes.
got.
miles
Yeah.
that road. I had to hike 15 miles up to the nearest railroad.
Oh gosh, yes.
What was it
John
like
F.
working on the One Piece dub?
It was the coolest. I will say that without all the experience that I've had up until that point, it was about 4 years in when I got to do that. Um, without some of the training that I've taken, I would not have probably gone back. I wouldn't have gotten to go back. I mean, because as nervous as I was, I felt confident in what I was going to do because of the training I've had, which is I specifically took a class from Chris Rager about how doing the experience of dubbing in a studio and what that feels like and what to expect. So the way they do the countdown on screen for you, the script on one side, the cartoon on the other. So I was ready for all of that. So I was able to control my nervousness and my excitement and act like I was up there being totally confident and cool, which I was not. But the other
Nice.
thing that they tell people to take a lot is improv classes because that improv is going to help you with cold reading, and that's pretty much necessary in anime. So when you get up there, you have a screen in front of you that has a script on it. You have a screen over here that's got the animation on it, and you look over the line briefly. Then on this screen, they play the scene as it is with the Japanese dub, then or the Japanese the original voicing, and then they play it again, and this time there's a little countdown to your line, and you say your line, and then they stop, and if it's good, they move forward, or if you need to do it again, you do it again, and that's where that improv comes in and why it's so important because you've got to basically read this line and act to it when you didn't see the cartoon up to that point. You haven't read the script up to that point. You weren't given the line ahead of time to study. You just have to make up as you go along how this is feeling, and you're matching your acting to what the character's doing and what the face looks like, but you're also trying to match your voice and your line to the lip flaps that they're doing. And yes, that is the technical term.
Lip
the,
flaps.
Right.
the lip flaps or
New
mouth
favorite
flaps.
word. Lip flaps.
That's
So so yeah, there's so I went in and my first time there was for episode 916, and it was this is in the Wano arc, and there's a pirate that's holding a fish that he's supposed to give to some kind of creature that they're holding hostage, and they're saying, why are we feeding it poisonous fish, and why are we supposed to take out the bones? And this pirate did not take out the bones like he was supposed to, and it leads to trouble down the line for them. So I was that pirate. There's another kind of boss pirate that's yelling at everybody like, do what we tell you, keep working, make more weapons, keep pounding those hammers. Um, and that was a lot of fun. And that was that part I was asked kind of because I did well on the first one. They asked, hey, can you stick around and do a second one? So that was a lot of fun. And I've done One Piece. I think I've done a total of 4 episodes of One Piece. They're all little kind of nameless characters, but so much fun. I've edited a clip together that's on my YouTube, actually, that just says my One Piece scenes, and it's kind of some of the bigger parts that have more lines and whatnot cut all together. It's about a minute long, minute and a half or something like that. But man, it was so much fun. I was so excited to get to do that.
That's so cool. That's actually, I've heard that is one of the few live action anime films that's pretty good for the genre.
It is very good. I agree.
Like, because I know
it.
a lot of people have seen like they've made live actions for other ones, but it's kind of like how they did with Percy Jackson movies, and they're so far from the book that it's like, what story is this? This isn't the same story.
Well,
so it's
yeah,
like, it's funny. That was like the perfect one to watch
like
the movie.
that. One Piece does change a lot from it, but they're all good changes. I think. I think they all make the show stronger and better. Like they kind of make every introduction a little more purposeful for the main character. So
yeah, it's such a long running one. So it's like it seems like it would have been really easy for them to kind of jip the whole thing as they did it. But
thank goodness they didn't.
Most of the fandom people, have been really happy with it, and that's honestly it's the only one I've seen myself so far of it. I haven't seen this series or read the manga, and I know it's like literally the longest running manga series ever. So it's crazy.
Yeah, not Miss Book of Friends dub was fun. I did that one was in the episode What Matters, and it's kind of a lot of running around and searching for this thing before it's destroyed in a fire, and then they end up just kind of making peace with, you know what, we're not going to find it, and that's okay. we don't need it. And so there was a lot of panicked running around voices. They have these characters called the yokai, which are these kind of half animal, half people, and so I'd kind of pick one out on the screen because that one I did for starting as a Walla session, which Walla is they put you in a room with 3 other voice actors, and whenever there's a crowd, you're all talking at the same time, being the voice of the crowd, and whether people are cheering or being afraid or running around or whatever. So we did a lot of those, and I'd pick one of the animal-looking characters, and I would kind of try to sound like this horse guy, even though I wasn't specifically assigned the horse guy. And so that was a lot of fun. And then we broke up into doing kind of separate lines, and that's where I got to do a couple of little 1 or 2 line characters, which is what they usually will do for a Walla session.
That's cool. Okay, so Geek Cred Trivia says don't start One Piece.
It's addictive. It's pretty addictive. I want to say in regards to what you were talking about adapting something, that there is this kind of school of thought of that when something's changed from the source material that equals bad. And I'm a big, massive Stephen King fan. And they just had a version of Salem's Lot come out that differed greatly from the book, but I enjoyed it a lot because the changes were very fun. And I've read that book. I've seen 2 versions of movies. So seeing it again, it was fun to see something different. However, there are some that take that too far, and the creative liberty goes, which when they adapted something called The Dark Tower, which is Stephen King's 7-book series, which is, I think, the best series I've ever read. I think it is up there with the Harry Potter books and with the Lord of the Rings. It's this incredible fantasy horror series. It's the best thing he's ever written, and it manages to tie all of a sudden he tied his entire everything he's ever written ties together into this, and including like characters from other books showing back up, and then at one point Stephen King showing up. It's crazy. It's nuts. But when they tried to make this, when they announced that they were going to make this series, initially it was going to be like 4 movies with a TV series in between each one, and that would do it because it's huge. And then they decided, we're gonna just do it as 3 movies, and then they said we're gonna do 1 movie, and it was such a mess. And they left out the main characters, and it was the way somebody described it. You'll relate to this is the Harry Potter comparison. Imagine if they adapted the entire Harry Potter series into one movie and just called it Hogwarts, and Hermione and Ron weren't in it. It was
Oh my gosh.
it was
Oh
awful.
no.
It was just awful.
See, I gotta admit, like
Harry Potter, what?
there's been a couple of like book series that they've made a movie, and I don't know if they were trying to condense it into one movie or what they were doing, but they changed it so much. Percy Jackson was one of those, and then Peculiar Children was one of those. It
Yes.
has a 7-book series, and it's such a good one. And you see the movie, and it's decent, but it's just like if you know the books, you're like, no, that's not
I had fun
right.
with that
I can
movie,
say the same thing
but
about
I
it.
hadn't read the book, so
Man, the books were actually really good, and they were really funny on some of the stuff too. It's a neat storyline. It's
The
a
movie
much
is better
more
than the
detailed.
book?
Apparently, the
I
movie
don't agree with that, but I think that it is just as great. I think they're both really, really great, and they're both very, very different. And see, that's an example that people say that's a terrible movie because it changes so much from the book. But it's not a terrible movie, no matter objectively, it's not a terrible movie. And
The Shining chapter.
it's a great one. Yeah, I've got the blanket right back there.
Yeah,
but that's a good example of that's a good example of how loyal you are to the source material doesn't make it good or bad, because they did make another version of The Shining with Steven Weber, who did a good job, but it was a made for TV movie. Stephen King wrote the screenplay himself, and it was on a very close to perfect adaptation, but it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. Same with the Langoliers, like a perfect page by page adaptation. Terrible, almost unwatchable movie. I couldn't stand it. So closer to the book does not always equal better.
I guess it really depends too. And with anime, it's hard too because they have these long running mangas and series like Yu Yu Hakusho. The movie was awful in my opinion, and I don't know anyone in the fandom that liked
I haven't
it.
seen it.
It's like, okay, my favorite character is almost, in my opinion, almost non-existent. Her personality is so vanilla, and I'm like, she's adorable in the whole series. She's a cute version of death, basically. How do I say this? I don't know, but she's adorable.
Version of death.
Yes, I love her. She's like one of my favorite anime characters of all time, and like literally in the movie, I'm just like, no, nope. That's not.
Jeremy, I did get to stay the night at the hotel that it's based on. My wife surprised me with a trip to Estes Park, and we stayed at the Stanley Hotel, and we bought a little book of ghost stories of the of like the things that have like that had happened supposedly in that hotel. And as we were reading one of those, we heard these kids thumping around upstairs, like running around and playing, and they ran down the fire escape and stuff, and it was obnoxious. And then the story we were reading at that particular moment when I went on, it was about all these people that came to the lobby to complain about all the children that were running around the hotel and making noise. And the guy at the desk told him, "Sir, there are no children booked into the hotel at the moment." And so we were like, "Oh, that's cool." And I tell that story, and I host the Scare Me podcast, and that's I did tell that as one of the introductions one day. That was a lot of fun.
So just a little shout out to your podcast real quick, since we're on that topic for a second. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about it. We've got about 6 minutes left, and I still want to hit you up for advice for future voice actors too.
Just very to summarize as quickly as I can, I love the feeling of getting spooked, like really spooked, when someone's telling you a story that supposedly is a true ghost story, and the hairs on the back of your neck stand up on end, and you get that prickly feeling of fear. And I started to think, well, I can make a podcast where people can tell me those stories, where I can feel that all the time. And that's basically what that is people telling me their experiences or local legends from their hometown.
Oh, that's awesome. Definitely have to check that out. All right, you can ask them.
Oh, if you go to my website, which is right there's a direct link to the Scare Me podcast on there.
So for those who can't see, that's actually just listening to the podcast, it is www.albieroblesvoice.com, which is www.albieroblesvoice.com.
And if you Google my name, if you just Google Albie Robles,
it out for us.
It'll take you to it pretty quickly.
There you go.
Good job.
10 points for Gryffindor for me for spelling.
Wonderful. All right, you want to ask our final question, the big
Yes.
question?
Do you have any advice for anyone who's trying to get into voice acting, any at all, especially from beginning to where you are now?
Start small and work your way up. Everything that you are able to make, every bit of money you're able to make through it, don't use it on other things. Invest it towards improving your gear, towards improving your space, and eventually to getting actual coaching and training, because that is necessary to move forward. The space is as important as the mic. Don't get the best mic right away. People do that thinking that they'll be set. It'll just pick up all the horrible sounds coming from your space. If you rush out and get like an $800 or $1,200 mic, I see beginners do that all the time, and it sounds terrible because they're not recording in a good space. So make your space, get your beginner's gear, and build up slowly. I made a whole image out of showing all the different. It's on my Instagram, my first setup through my current setup. You just see the progression of how I did that, and just build yourself up slowly. Be patient. You're not going to start making money right away, and that's okay. You're not going to get most of the things you audition for. Know that that's normal. They're just not choosing you because you're not the voice they had in their head ahead of time, not because you're not doing a good job. Just keep doing your best. Learn everything you can. Ask questions.
Awesome.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It was like voice acting abridged.
Yes,
that was beautifully put, man. Like
thanks
you
so much.
understand and follow there. I love
Also,
it.
where did you go for voice acting?
You mentioned
went
Chris
to a
Razor's class.
I did Chris Razor's class. I did
He's
one from a
brain.
guy named Ron Fouts as well. That was kind of offering a discounted course at the time. Like I said, you look around, make sure that the coaches are respectable coaches, because a lot of people are starting voiceover, and after like a year of doing it, they're wanting to start a coaching business. And after 7 years, I don't think I'm anywhere near being able to teach or coach. So there's a website called I want to be a voiceactor.com that will give a lot of the information that's there. And if people want to email me, or send me reach out through social media, I can send that and another link or two that can help get them kind of pointed in the right direction. Just know ahead of time, it's a steep learning curve. You have to learn how to engineer your audio. You have to put in a lot of time and a lot of work. It's not something that, even if you have a knack for acting, you got a lot to learn and you've got a lot of work to do.
Very nice, very nice. Appreciate you coming on here, buddy.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Absolutely. So now we're gonna do our little plugs. We're gonna plug in Mombi with her Instagram. So everybody, we gotta follow her Instagram. We gotta follow
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the things.
Yes, YouTube, everything.
Facebook. Wait, I said. I meant to say CJ's not here, but oh my gosh, it's been
we're lost without you, CJ. I don't know if you can see it, but we are.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so CJ's not here, but definitely check out her YouTube. She also has Facebook and Instagram as well. CJ Peterson. And of course, Yukita Cosplay. Check out her awesome cosplay content, which she has been sharing lately. Bravo on her Instagram.
Oh, Mama's proud of me.
Yeah. Woo. All right. Next week we actually have 2 episodes. We have a special mini episode with Drew, who is the comic author of Halloween Man. Just in time for spooky season. And then we also have our regularly scheduled podcast on Tuesday at 7. Of course, it's with BFG Cosplay, and the special will be airing live at 7 p.m. on Monday. So you guys keep your eyes out. Keep an eye out for that. There we go. Keep your eyes
peeled.
What? That always comes up that way.
Magic Makers, like everything that we do, subscribe, leave comments, all the cool things, pay your tolls. Yeah.
Tip your waitresses. All right. Love you guys.
Without further ado.
Till next time, Wands to the ready.
There you go. Wands to the ready.
Mischief managed. Bye.
Bye.